I surprised my parents with tickets to Maui for my first big paycheck, hoping we could all spend some quality time together, but my parents ordered that they wanted to go with my golden child sister instead, BC, as she deserved a break more than I did. My parents called me from their perfect vacation BCUs. My sister messed up again and now they want me to pay her bail, but I tell them this. I, 25 female, wanted to do something special with my first big paycheck. Not just for myself but for my parents, Lily, 55 female, and William, 58 male. I thought it would be a great way to show how much I appreciated everything they had done for me. You know, parent things like raising me and helping me out when they could. We did not have the best relationship, and things have always been a little rocky in terms of how they treated my sister Jenny, 30, female, compared to me. But I thought this would be a good chance for us to spend some quality time together, so I surprised them with flight tickets to Maui. I thought it was worth it, even though it was not cheap. I was excited about the idea of the three of us relaxing in Hawaii, bonding, and possibly finally getting on the same page about a lot of things. And growing up, we never took vacations because my dad was always working, so it seemed like the perfect gift for them. However, when I handed them the tickets, they did not react as I expected. Instead of feeling excited about going on vacation together, they brushed me off. They said the trip was nice and all, but they felt my sister needed it more than I did. My sister, who has always been the golden child, could probably use the break. They claimed she was going through a lot and deserved some time away to relax. It did not matter that I was trying to make this something memorable for us, and that I was the one who had put in a lot of effort to get here. Nope, they thought my sister deserved the vacation more than I did. And that was it. It hurt, but it was not entirely unexpected. My parents have always prioritized her. As a child, I was told that she did everything perfectly, and for my parents, I was just the extra child, the reliable one. They thought I did not need any extra attention because I had everything under control. Whatever I did, her problems would always overshadow my accomplishments. I got used to it, but it still hurt when they said they would rather take her on the trip I paid for. So I decided to let them go. I did not make a fuss because what was the point? I had spent my entire life trying to gain their approval, to be seen. I was not going to beg for it anymore. They packed and left with my sister to go to Maui while I stayed at home and got back to my work, taking care of my duties as usual while they looked after her. At first I tried not to dwell on it too much. It's not like I expected things to change just because I bought the tickets, but seeing pictures of them having a good time in Maui on social media still felt awful. My sister, who never seems to have it together, was once again rewarded while I was back here working. They posted about how much fun they were having lounging by the pool and exploring the island as if it were the ideal family vacation. I suppose it was, just without me. But a few days into their trip I received a call in the middle of the night. My mom called, sounding panicked. My sister had gotten herself in trouble yet again. She had been out partying, of course, and things had gotten out of control. From what I could tell, she got involved with the wrong crowd, drank too much, and ended up in jail. This was not the first time that it happened. She had a way of getting herself into these situations, but my parents were always able to brush it aside and fix it before it became a major issue. This time, however, they needed my help. They wanted me to pay her bail. I wish I could say that I was surprised, but I was not. This was yet another instance of the same old pattern. My sister makes a mistake, and my parents rush to help her. They were calling me now, not to see how I was doing, or to say they were sorry for not including me on the trip, but simply because they needed money. Once more, they needed me to clean up the mess she had made. It was frustrating. I was the one who had worked hard, saved money, tried to do something nice for our family, and now they were calling me to sort out my sister's mistake. They had taken her on the trip I paid for because she deserved it more, and now she had ruined their dream vacation by getting arrested, and somehow it was my responsibility to make things right. I was just frustrated and confused. Part of me wanted to help to return to my old role as the responsible one who could be relied on when things went wrong, but another part of me had already been exhausted and done. I was tired and frustrated of being the backup plan, the one they called when my sister's life inevitably went wrong. I was tired of always having to fix things and wasting my energy on her, while she got away with everything and never even looked back once. So I made my decision. I was not going to pay her bail. I was not going to save the day this time. They had made their decision to take her on the trip instead of me. They could handle the consequences of their decision. It was not my responsibility to keep bailing her out, but I was done playing that role. I was not going to let them guilt me into paying her way out of trouble, especially after everything that had happened. They had chosen her over me yet again, and now they were asking me to save her yet again, and I was over it. I'm not sure how they handled the situation after that. I did not ask and they did not tell me. They probably figured out how to get her out exactly like they always do, but for once it was not my problem. I did not feel bad saying no either. In fact, I experienced a strange sense of relief, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders, as if I was finally free from the responsibility my parents imposed on me when I was a kid. It was the first time in a long time that I had stood up for myself, drew a line and said that I was done. It is not that I was not concerned about my family. I was, but I had spent far too much of my life prioritizing their needs over mine, sacrificing my own well-being to keep the peace and be the good one. What did it get me? Not much. They still treated me as a secondary person, as if I were less important than my sister, and she is my older sister. She should have been the one taking care of me, but instead I was the one always cleaning up her mess all the time. Looking back, I'm not sure I made the right decision. I did not pay her bail. I drew a line and I finally stood up for myself after years of being ignored, but there is still a part of me that feels guilty, as if I should have. helped just to keep the family together and played my part. Maybe I was too harsh, or maybe this was what was supposed to happen all along. I'm not sure if my parents or sister will ever understand why I did what I did, or if it will only make things worse between us, but now I cannot help but wonder. ATF for refusing to bail out my sister after my parents ditched me for her on the vacation I paid for. Update 1. Hello guys. So my parents returned from their trip to Maui last month. Things between my family and me became even more complicated after the trip. I stayed at home concentrating on work and attempting to distract myself from the whole situation. The first few days after their return was awkward. I was expecting a call or message from my parents or sister, but all I got was radio silence. It was weird, to be honest. Normally they would contact me to tell me about their trip and how much fun they had, but now nothing. I saw posts on social media about their vacation and how much they loved the beach and the food. They were all happy in every photo, and I felt like a ghost watching from the sidelines. It stung to see my sister thrive while I was left behind, but I was trying to move on from the pain. I reminded myself that I had made the correct decision by not bailing her out. I could not be the one who always fixed things for her, especially since they chose her over me for the vacation. Then one evening my mom texted me. All it had was a simple message that read, "Wish you were here," along with a photo of their trip that showed a sunset over the ocean. My heart sank slightly. It felt like they were attempting to get me back in their favor, but it also felt like they were acknowledging my absence without really understanding why I was not there. I did not respond immediately. I wanted to think about how to handle it. I eventually decided to reply. I told her that while I was glad they had a good time, I needed some space. I did not want to get caught up in their cycle of relying on me when things went wrong. My mom apologized extensively, claiming they had no intention of hurting me and that taking Jenny on the trip was a last-minute decision. They felt she needed it more at the time, but I could tell she was attempting to fix things. My dad asked if they could come over for pizza. I did not want to, but he insisted, so I reluctantly accepted. They came over and my dad bought some pizza. It felt strange sitting there eating as if nothing had happened, but we all pretended it was fine. I paid close attention to both of them, particularly my dad. He did not mention Jenny's situation or the bail. Instead, he tried to explain how beautiful Maui was and how relaxing it was for them. It seemed like a distraction, a way to avoid the real issue between us. Jenny stopped by a few days later. She appeared disorganized and tired, but she also had that "I don't care about anything, the world revolves around me" vibe that always drew my parents in. I kept thinking about how she got through another mess while still having my parents' love and support. I expected her to say something about the trip or maybe even apologize for the trouble she caused, but instead, she started talking about the delicious food they ate and how she met some interesting people and hung out with so many boys while they were there. I just sat there smiling and feeling terrible about myself. Things became even more uncomfortable when my parents began hinting that they would need help from me again. They mentioned Jenny's need to get back on track and asked me to help her find a therapist. It was as if they had completely overlooked what had just happened. They did not realize how exhausting it was for me to constantly be the one picking up the pieces. I felt as if I was being drawn back into that role where I had to be the responsible one. Eventually, I decided to have an honest conversation with them, and I told them I was tired of always having to fix things for Jenny, and I needed them to understand how I felt. They seemed surprised. I think they assumed I would just go along with it as I always did. My mom began to cry, saying she had no idea how much I was struggling and that she was sorry. My dad appeared uncomfortable, and it was almost like he was lost and did not know what to say to make the situation better. My parents continued calling, which was all right, but they kept asking me to be a part of Jenny's life again. They wanted me to be the one to push her to get a job, help her find a therapist, or simply talk to her about making better decisions. It felt very unfair. I was done being the backup. I was not going to be the person who always came to the rescue. I could not take it anymore. I asked my parents to meet me for lunch last week, and I told them that while I cared about Jenny, I did not and could not look after her anymore. I had my own life to manage, and I needed to prioritize my own self for once. If they were not okay with that, I would prefer not to be in touch with them. They acted shocked, angry, and disappointed. They tried to argue, but I held my ground. I could understand that they were not ready to accept what I said, but I told them that there was no way I would change my mind. The rest of the lunch was quiet. No one really spoke to each other. It has been a whole week since that lunch, and they have not reached out to me yet. I guess that means they chose to cut off ties with me, and I think that is all right. If it means that I will not be treated like a doormat anymore, then I'll manage. Update 2. Hey guys, it has been 6 months since the last update. My mom recently contacted me. Around a month and a half back, I received a message from my mom. She was asking how I'd been doing. I stared at the message for a while. I was not sure how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it to maintain the boundary I had set, but another part of me wondered if this was her way of reaching out, of attempting to make amends. So I responded, keeping it brief and neutral, something like, "I'm fine, just busy with work." She did not mention anything else. She did not mention Jenny even once. I figured maybe she really wanted to talk to me. It still felt a little weird though. After that, everything was quiet for a few days. I figured that was it. But then my dad called. I almost did not answer because I was worried it would be another attempt to drag me back into the same pattern. I answered though because I was curious and I wanted to know what he wanted to say. He did not directly mention Jenny, which surprised me. Instead, he wanted to know about what was happening to me and how things were going at work and whether I was seeing someone or not. It felt strange, as if he was checking how much I would interact without pushing any buttons. But of course the act did not last that long. After a few minutes of small talk, He casually mentioned the real reason for the call. My parents were concerned about Jenny. They had no idea how to help her because she was spiraling yet again and she lost her job. She was out every night partying, and she did not even make it back home on days. He was not looking for money this time, at least not yet, but he did want me to reach out to her. He hoped I could talk to her and make her realize that this is not how she should live her life and she needs to get back on her feet. Funny that he said get back on her feet as if she was ever on her feet. There it was yet again, the same pattern. They expected me to step in and clean up her mess. I could feel the old frustration and anger rising, which I had tried hard to suppress. I told him as calmly as possible that I would not be getting involved. I made my position clear over that lunch, and I was not going to back down now. Jenny was 30 years old and on her own. I told him she needed to work things out for herself. He did not say much after that except that he understood, but I could tell he did not. He never does. After the call I had this strange feeling. It was not just that they were still attempting to drag me back into the same old dynamic, but I knew deep down that nothing had changed. I was caught up in their mess no matter how many boundaries I tried to set and how much space I tried to create. I could cut off contact completely, but that did not solve the guilt, the sense that I was somehow abandoning them. And to be honest, I wondered if I would ever truly be free of this cycle. Then about a week later, Jenny texted me. That confused me even more. She has never reached out to me personally. She immediately asked if I could lend her some money, just like that. There was no explanation. She was in a tough spot and required support. I expected it. I knew deep down that she was not going to change, and that everything would return to how they were. But seeing it laid out so clearly, so shamelessly, made me feel terrible for her. I pitied her at that moment, I think. I did not respond. I could not. Instead, I just sat there wondering how it all came to be. It all simply went back around, even when I believed I had finally broken free and taken a stand. After a few days, my parents called again, and this time things were worse. I was not interested in knowing the specifics, but Jenny ended up in some serious legal trouble involving unpaid bills and fraud. They were frantic and asked if I could help. It was not just about money anymore. They needed someone to step in, take responsibility again, and save her. Everything I had said and done to draw the line seemed to have been totally wiped out, and that is where we are now. I have not answered my parents' calls. I've been avoiding Jenny's texts while figuring out what to do next. Part of me wishes to cut them off entirely, but another part of me, the one that has been conditioned to take care of everything, is still attached to them. I really need some opinions. If anyone reading this has any advice to share, it would be helpful. Hey guys, the last update was a few weeks ago and it has been a roller coaster ride. I thought I would post an update because I honestly do not know how a coaster ride. I thought I would post an update because I honestly do not know how to process everything that has happened in the last few weeks. Just when I thought things could not get any more complicated, life came along and proved me wrong. So after ignoring Jenny's text and my parents' phone calls, I was in this weird uncertainty. I knew they would not just ignore it, but I could not bring myself to respond. The entire situation felt like quicksand. Every time I thought I had climbed out, something drew me back in. However, I experienced an unusual sense of calm for a few days. I was not dealing with their drama. I was not cleaning up Jenny's mess. It was almost as if I was free, but I knew deep down that it would not last. Several days after my last post, I received a call from an unknown number. I usually ignore them, but something told me I should respond to this one. It turned out to be one of Jenny's friends. Well, friend might be a bit of a stretch, more like someone she parties with. She called to inform me that Jenny was in trouble again. Apparently, she had gotten involved with some shady characters, and things had quickly gone wrong. I will not go into detail because honestly I'm still trying to make sense of it all myself, but let me just say it was not your typical she needs help scenario. Initially I thought that this was not my problem. I stated unequivocally that I would not get involved, but as the conversation went on I felt that familiar pull of responsibility creeping in. The friend was vague about what had happened, but she insisted Jenny was in danger and needed help. I felt conflicted. On the one hand, I did not want to be sucked back into Jenny's chaos, but what if she was truly in trouble this time, and what would happen if I did not make an effort to help? It is as if no matter how much space I try to create, that constant guilt never goes away. I told the friend I would think about it and we hung up. Then, unexpectedly, my dad called again, and this time I responded. I'm not sure why, maybe I simply wanted to know how bad things had gotten. He was panicking and speaking quickly and I could barely keep up. Jenny was apparently arrested again. She was in major legal trouble now that something about unpaid debts and fraud had caught up with her. They were obviously hoping that I could help, but they did not have the money to bail her out. I did not know what to say. My immediate reaction was no, and it is not my problem, but that guilt, that feeling of being the one who should step in and fix everything started to nag at me again. My dad sounded desperate, and for a moment I almost gave in. I almost said I would help, but I did not. I told him I could not do it, that I had already made my position clear and was not going back on it. He did not argue very much, which surprised me. He simply sighed and said that they did not know what to do anymore. I felt numb after that phone call. It felt like I was carrying a massive weight on my shoulders that would not go away no matter what I did. I tried to concentrate on work and my own life, but everything seemed off. I could not shake the feeling that something bad was about to happen, and I was correct. A week later, a lawyer called me. I was on my parents' contact list for Jenny's legal matters. I did not even know about it. The lawyer wanted to speak with me about options for helping her. Jenny apparently had built up quite a bit of debt and was being sued for fraud by a few people. I have no idea how she got into such trouble, but I was not surprised. What surprised me was that my parents had legally forced me into it without my knowledge. I felt betrayed but also trapped. I already told them I was not going to get involved, but now I am being forced to. The lawyer explained that because I was listed as a contact, I might be responsible for helping her in resolving issues, especially if she could not represent herself. How has it made it this far, and why was I always the one they went to even though I had made it clear I wanted out? I informed the lawyer that I needed time to think. That is the current situation. Since then I have not spoken to my parents. I feel stuck. I keep asking myself, what if this time is different? What if she is in serious trouble and I'm just sitting here doing nothing? However, I have been down this road before. I do not know what to do. I'm trapped in an endless cycle of guilt, frustration, and responsibility, and I do not know how to break free. It is as if no matter how many times I say I'm finished, I am never truly done. Something always draws me back in, whether it is my parents, Jenny, or my own sense of obligation. I'm still trying to figure everything out. Update 4. Hello everyone. I figured it was time for another update. A lot has happened since my last update and I finally have some answers. It has been a difficult few weeks, but things have settled down a little and I'm in a better mental state now. I thought I would share where things stand. Following the lawyer's call, I spent the next few days contemplating what to do. I knew I needed to decide, but every time I tried, that little voice of guilt crept back in and made me doubt everything. It was exhausting. I could not sleep well and could not focus at work. It was like a dark cloud hanging over me. I could not shake it no matter how hard I tried. But then something happened and everything changed. I received another call from the lawyer, this time with a completely different tone. Jenny appeared to have managed to avoid the worst of the legal trouble. She had reached an agreement with the people suing her, and while she still had a lot of debt to pay off, she was not going to jail or anything. I was shocked. I'm not sure how she did it. Maybe my parents helped her behind the scenes, or she had some money hidden away that no one knew about. But the point is, she was not in as much immediate danger as I thought. That phone call felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Suddenly the pressure was not as intense. I was not dragged into a life-threatening situation. Jenny was still in a mess, but it was hers to deal with, not mine. For the first time in weeks, I felt able to breathe again. After that, I began to think more clearly. I realized that no matter how much I loved my family, I could not keep putting myself in situations that were affecting my mental health. Jenny had always found a way to survive, even if it required making risky decisions. My parents, despite their constant requests for help, supported her behavior. They were not doing her any favors by bailing her out repeatedly, and they were not doing me any favors by attempting to force me into it. So what I ended up doing was calling my parents and having a long, calm conversation with them. I told them I loved them, but I could not keep being the person who fixed everything. I explained that I needed to take a break and prioritize my own life for a while. I made it clear that I was not cutting them off completely, but I was not going to get involved in Jenny's problems any longer. They were surprisingly understanding. I believe they realized they had been asking too much from me for too long. I did not contact Jenny directly, but I did send her a short text message. I told her I hoped she was fine and was relieved she had resolved her legal issues. I also told her that I could not help her financially or emotionally anymore, but I wished her all the best. I did not get a response, and I'm fine with that. I do not need her validation or approval. I just needed to clarify my position and move on. Things have calmed down since then. My parents have not called me as frequently, and when they do, it's not about Jenny. We talk about everyday topics like how their week went or how work is going for me. It's really refreshing. I believe we're finally beginning to have a relationship that is not centered on drama and crisis management. Of course, I'm not dumb. I'm aware that things may flare up again. My parents always tried to drag me into helping Jenny out of trouble because she tends to get into trouble herself, but now I'm more confident in my ability to deal with it. I know what my boundaries are, and I am not afraid to enforce them. So, I suppose my lesson from all this is that I have finally found some balance. It was not easy, but I have gotten to the point where I can care for my family without letting their problems control my life. It is still a work in progress.